Good morning, everybody. It's early, and I know a lot of people are fast asleep. They'll catch the live early in the morning, but I want to get this done. Work's over for the evening, and I want to go through a lot of that's happened with Canada today. Just hours ago, Justin Trudeau announces the banning of all government employees Canada-wide from TikTok. It's banned from all government employees. Why is that? They say, well, China's an issue. So watch the balloons, the growing mass of issues with China, apparently. Now we have Pierre Poilievre, who in 2013, against a vote in Parliament by the NDP opposition, voted and brought forward the motion. They all voted yes to scrapping the Canada China Sino deal. If you don't know what that is, that was a deal beginning in 2014, but it started a few years before that under the Conservatives. It was first brought forward in 2008. I've clearly chased Pierre Poilievre of all Privy Council cabinet ministers of the time. He's a lifetime Privy Council, as was Aaron O'Toole, Jason Kenney, who was former Premier of Alberta, Aaron O'Toole, former leader, Candice Bergen, the list goes on and on. But folks, it wasn't even just the entirety of the corrupt Conservative Party of Canada, which also included Maxime Bernier, who all voted no to scrapping the China Canada Sino deal. And I want Canadians to understand this. You all were polled. You were polled between 2011 and 2013. Multiple polls. Did you know, Canadians? You answered 79%. Massive, massive majority. The kind of majority that would be a wet dream for any liberal, conservative, NDP bloc, PPC, Green, and on, party's wet dream. That would be a wet dream majority that you could never imagine for a prime minister, let alone a party in power. But it has happened provincially. But those kind of numbers federally are a politician's wet dream. And you, the people, it was 79% of conservative voters, registered conservative voters, said scrap the Canada-China Sino deal. Liberals, 71% of liberal Canadian voters, registered liberal voters, to scrap the Canada-China Sino deal. He said, yes, scrap it. Then we go to NDP. A whopping 82% said scrap the Canada-China Sino deal. Yes. And Bloc in major majority too, well over 80, I believe 83%. I'd have to look at the notes. But Canadians, overall 79% of you at the time said scrap the Canada-China Sino deal. NDP under Thomas Mulcair, a Vancouver MP, NDP brought the motion forward that Thomas wanted brought forward, was to get the Liberals and Conservatives in power under Stephen Harper. Scrap the deal. 170 Liberals and Conservative MPs, the majority that shut it down, said no, we're not going to scrap the deal. We don't care about the 79% of Canadians. We don't care about the majority. We don't care about Nortel. We all got rich while Canadians went poor. The losses were huge. There were red flags in our medical, in our scientific, the loss of intellectual property in telecommunications, science, and medical was astronomical. And they said no. and the amount of spies who came through Canada, according to CSIS, between 2010 and 2012 was clear and evident. It's so bad how fast voters forget. They forget these things. That was going way back. That's almost 10 years ago now, folks. In a couple months, that will be 10 years ago. Clearly, between 2010 and 2013, nearing going into 2014, Pierre Poilievre took 3 payments, logged payments in the parliamentary records for Chinese committees, where 1 month's time with the Chinese Communist Party, he was paid a sum of $13,000, $10,000, and almost $11,000 by the Chinese Communist Party. Pierre Poilievre. He took 33,000 and change to absolutely betray all Canadians in massive majority. You'll find Pierre Poilievre voted no too. Again, Aaron O'Toole, Jason Kenney, Stephen Harper, 170 Conservative and Liberal MPs voted no. We're not going to listen to the Canadian people. We're going to make this deal in the face of NORAD, scientific theft of intellectual property, and telecommunications. Huge areas, big tech and big medical, stolen, clearly. And they went ahead and did the deal anyway. They got rich. We know Paul Martin was already a billionaire getting rich. We know all about the pharmaceutical industry and how much was taken from you, the Canadian taxpayers. Never mind Nortel and just how badly Canadians were screwed over. We were world-class in cellular phone technology. Now we're losers. Massive losers. This was done by the Liberals and the Conservatives. Is Justin Trudeau guilty of allowing China to interfere in elections and turn a blind eye? Of course. His entire Liberal government joined the Conservatives when Bloc and NDP did not in 2014 and said, yes, bring Communist China forward. We will back you, Conservative Party of Canada. We back you, Stephen Harper. You know the federal crown. You know how much money we're all going to make and how much is going to come out of the Canadian people. And if anyone thinks that Maxime Bernier isn't a total piece of shit liar, and he's worse because he portrays himself as something he entirely in history is not. He's as bad or worse than Pierre Poilievre because he verbally tells you he's going to do all these things the other way, but their voting record in Parliament as Crown sworn lifetime Privy Council members. Pierre Poilievre gets the same check that Maxime Bernier does every month. Maxime Bernier isn't even an MP anymore, but he doesn't, it's not a pension check, you guys. This is a check for his lifetime loyalty as a lifetime Privy Council member. Justin Trudeau cuts Maxime Bernier a check every month for $5,055. He also cuts a check to Pierre Poilievre for that loyalty. That's Crown constitutional law. Now, folks, why I'm getting into this about China and what you have to know here is what I'm going to present now is all from the Middle East, specifically academics and consultants inside, experts inside Saudi Arabia and Qatar. These are all Islamist academics, and I want to go through what they've had to say because I've been reaching out to a lot of folks. I've been very troubled over everything that's happening in the world just in the last week. It's been extreme. It's been extreme for Canada. And I want to get into why Canada just banned TikTok, which is owned by the Communist Party of China, for all of their government employees. All government employees are no longer allowed the app TikTok. And I think Devin Zoller, you're there, and I see you. You were laughing. You thought it was funny. The Jagmeet Singh loves TikTok. Does all his videos. Oh, he did so well in the States. Well, none of the Democrats can use TikTok anymore either. No Republicans. It's banned in 27 states. It's just gone through Congress to ban entirely through the federal, all of them, all of the federal personnel, whether you're Democrat or Republican, banned entirely. The EU, all of 27 nations have banned it, not the UNSCP 5 member France, not the UK. They haven't banned it at all. Some Islamic states have banned it because they ban everything anyway on religious grounds. Now, when I get into this, we're going to get into the Islamist Brotherhood. That's a fact. We're going to go through BRICS. We're going to go through Saudi Arabia and Qatar specifically. Those who don't know, those are two extremely wealthy Islamic states. Very, very wealthy, especially Qatar per person per capita. Saudi Arabia is too. So I want to tell you what the experts of Saudi Arabia and Qatar have to say. So, you know, these are kingdoms, right? These are constitutional monarchies. They're not part of the Commonwealth. They're their own constitutional monarchies, meaning their citizens are defined subjects. And there are savage peoples, like the way certain elements view Jews or Christians. That's reality. That is reality. No different than all other colonial kingdoms, which Saudi Arabia and Qatar are not colonial. So I want to get that across. They are monarchies, they're imperialists, but they are not colonials. They didn't take a significant amount of their population and transport it overseas to other communities and put them there, okay? They have no history of that, just like China and others. We may not like their governing systems, we may not like how they operate, but they don't treat on you. They don't transplant their people into your world. Your government does that. They don't. They don't. Your colonial Crown Canada does that. A monarchy who narrates everybody as either subject or savage, which means you're basically a slave to that class system, to that divine elite. So what's Saudi Arabia doing these days? Well, they're getting off the petrodollar. A lot of people are like, but Dave, Saudi Arabia just funded $400 million to Ukraine. I'm going to teach you guys a thing about Saudi Arabia and Qatar. They know what the P5 is. They understand that there are five powers, folks, from World War II. Saudi Arabia and Qatar are moving to strengthen relationships with all five. It makes their country very strong. Keep a great relationship with USA. Keep a great relationship with Russia. Keep a great relationship with China. Keep a great relationship with UK, and keep a great relationship with France. They do all five. They're not like Canada. They don't go after any of the five. They understand it very well. They're highly intelligent. They know what they're doing. The greatest victory for Saudi Arabia and Qatar these days, their plan is to diversify currencies with the five, with the P5. They want to move away from the American petrodollar, as does India and other countries, and diversify into the five currencies. Yuan for the Chinese dollar, they're all going into that. They're all applied and going for BRICS. Those two countries I'm talking about, they're going for BRICS. If you don't know what that is, that's a China, India, China, India, Russia, and Brazil. They're making their own form of a WEF, World Economic Forum, called BRICS. It's going to be theirs, their country's creation. It's sponsored by P5, two P5s. China's there too. China, Russia. They want to diversify into that. They want to have their fingers in all P5 countries. They're highly intelligent. The biggest goal right now for all monarchies, kingdoms, unitaries, but autocrats, divine dictators, is to see the P5 go at each other. Ultimately, the we the people countries destroy each other. What would be the best outcome would be USA defending its petrodollar against Russian China's BRICS. They would all love it for those two groups, Russia and China, to fight toe-to-toe with the United States of America, and they would be greatly weakened. All three nations would literally break each other down. Who picks up the pieces? Well, it won't be UK and France, who did not ban TikTok, China, who are staying in the sidelines, keeping extremely quiet. UK left the EU. France is leader P5 of the EU, but they're the only country not to ban TikTok, folks. Macron's wife plays on TikTok all the time. You see what's happening here? UK and France are sitting in the background as empires of old world order empires. They're waiting, as are all kingdoms, unitaries, divine dictators are waiting to see those we the people republics destroy each other so they can move in for the old world order. Best way to do that is to corrupt the petrodollar USA, which doesn't take much. According to Middle East experts, especially out of Saudi Arabia and Qatar, that if Saudi removed a quarter of its petrodollar reliance, if India removed a quarter of its petrodollar reliance, and so forth through the BRICS and other kingdoms, it would be enough to put the United States down. The recycled money that they've relied on since Richard Nixon would be destroyed. If you look at the Middle East and its gold buying, you'll see the tail of the tape. This is by literally the greatest economics and international and customary law experts from Qatar and absolutely Saudi Arabia. I keep up to date with it. I'm no slouch on economics. Look at the tail of the tape. It's all true. It's all true. And if USA loses those petrodollar recyclables, is what I call it, that strengthens the American dollar as the global currency, basically the replacement of the gold standard, you're going to see desperation to the point of a World War III. Canada does whatever the United States does. They're, like a lot of people say, the little chihuahua who sits there beside the big bulldog and, what he said, and they shoot their mouth off. But Canada has ruined us forevermore in the United Nations Security Council. We've alienated Russia. There is no repair for Canada. We've alienated China. There is zero repair for Canada. I want to tell you guys something else that the United States did that we should have stepped back. When I talk about UN states like Canada, there's certain things that you don't cross the line as a UN General Assembly state. If you're not, when P5 members go at it, you have to step back. Canada doesn't do that. It's cost us, the United Nations Security Council, forever and a day. Which, when you look at residential school and other things, that's great. But I want to get to what the Ukraine war is really all about. The Ukraine war right now today for America is because Russia and the BRICS and China and this BRICS and that going against that petrodollar. When COVID-19 came out, a lot of people looked at it the wrong way. When you look at it economically, if you ever wanted to see the greatest measuring stick in everybody, regardless of how you feel about pandemic or no pandemic, it was the economic highlight of the century. If you ever want to see the P5 come together, 5 out of 5 countries, which is very rare, but on global value and supply chains for the vaccines, they're the 5 countries who rolled out vaccines. You got to see mobilization. You got to see living, breathing value and supply chains. You got to see how strong America is. You definitely got to see how very, very strong Russia really is. And you got to see how very strong China is becoming. You got to see a weakened UK, a very weak France. You got to see it. And when you highlight those global value and supply chains controlled by the 5 allies of World War II, the most powerful countries in the world, just for that status and what's promised to them in international law and control, you got to see the USA is very powerful, but they saw how very powerful Russia is today and how big time growth and power China has gotten in the Asian world. That's all through the Middle East too, folks, but Russia's there too. And now we're at a point where USA sees the infringement on the dollar. When Russia invaded Ukraine, because of multiple times in the United Nations Security Council, where the entire council and all rotating members voted unanimously, meaning every single one of them voted that Ukraine was to give those regions federalism, allow them the Minsk agreement saying, you will be federalists, you will get your Russian ability, you'll be able to trade, you'll have regionalism like a province or a state, like a province or state. Switzerland has another name for their regions, but federalisms are very rare. They're very rare where you have a division of powers, and that was what the Minsk agreements were supposed to be. Ukraine said, no, you'll be unitary, you will lose your religion, you will lose your languages. We don't give a shit what the UNSC votes for in majority. Screw you. And nobody enforced it. They took it, well, Russia will just have to figure it out. Ha ha ha. Well, Russia attacked. They had enough. After Joe Biden signed the 2021 Atlantic Charter, Russia invaded. Here's the problem. All the sanctions USA did to Russia that they figured with the power of their petrodollar would work. We watched India, Saudi Arabia, Iraq. We watched Qatar. Everybody still trade with China and Russia and even transform their petrodollar reliance, buying in yuan or buying in Russian ruble. China and Russia are teamed up in this. They're going through with BRICS. And guess what? That spells a disaster for the United States of America. Again, if those countries that are reliant on the U.S. petrodollar, if even a quarter of their reliance is turned into yuan or ruble, it's game over for the petrodollar in USA. It's the beginning of the serious decline. Now, that is enough to drive USA out of survival mode to go to war with Russia and China. The dollars that would threaten the petrodollar, the USD, the global currency. That will be World War III, and all kingdoms, unitaries, monarchies, and pure autocrats would love that, because the fallout from a conflict where Russia, China, and USA fight to their own destructions, mutual destructions, or extreme weakened states will lead to a return to the old world order, where Canada, with subjects and savages, will be the global norm. And before China, Russia, and USA, specifically Russia and USA, there were no human rights, none really whatsoever. It was survival of the richest. It was class structure, first, second, and third. And then there were the savages. But there were no real human rights for men and women. Definitely not women before World War II. Not really. Not really. We talk about that as old customary or morality laws, and the woman stayed home, but really there were no rights for women. There were very limited rights for the subjects and all. Serfs and peasants for the longest time. USA itself changed that, but what would the world look like with the return to things like the British Empire or other empires of old who narrate subjects and savages, not citizens, not real we the people? What happens if we don't have the we the people anymore? People don't realize these things, and this is the past coming to haunt us. It's real history, credible, real, verifiable, tons of literature on it. But what the media propagates, what we see on TV, is not history, it's not truth, and it doesn't even look at that. This is what we're facing. That is real, credible, and verifiable from the greatest minds of Qatar and Saudi Arabia in the Middle East kingdoms. Thanks, everybody. That's my video. It's real, true, credible, and verifiable. Bye now.